Okay. All right, guys. Let me know if we are live. If you guys see me, if everything's working, let me know, let me know. Everything's looking good on my end, but I'm not seeing any comments rolling in yet, so I don't want to get started yet. Still not seeing. Let me see. Where's that chat at? All right. Okay, we are live. Guys, it's been a while since I used my software, so I can see where the problem is. Also, I can also see another problem here. Give me 1 second. I got to fix something. It's been a while since I did a proper live with the whole chat and everything else. Let me just fix this quickly here. I'm going to do some... Oh, no, it's working. All right, sweet. Okay. All right, guys. So we are going to get started. The topic of today is training really aggressive dogs. So I think this is something that... I think it's about time we really talked about this again. It's been a little bit since we really talked about this. So let's talk about training real aggressive dogs. And by really aggressive dogs, I'm not talking about what most people call aggressive dogs. I'm talking about like real cases, like where the dog will really, really hurt you, where the dog has a history of hurting, either yourself, either the handler or another dog, you know, where the dog, is clearly intent-based in their behavior. It's not like just, a kind of a paper tiger, so to speak. So let's break this down. Let's break this down, okay? So like most people term as like, oh, he's really aggressive, he's really nasty, when they're speaking about a dog that's like that towards other dogs or towards people. In most cases, they fall into that category of like, it's really actually not that bad. It appears bad if you're not like really used to and familiar with dog behavior, but it's really not that bad. The dog's actually doesn't have a ton of intent. He might be willing to bite you or nip at you, but he's not really all about it. But every so often you run into those dogs that are about it, that are about hurting you, that are about, imposing their will upon you, that are about, even trying to kill you, and definitely like that towards other dogs as well. And that's a whole different kettle of fish that I don't think a lot of people really, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about it. For those of you asking how the weather is freezing cold. It is minus 10 degrees Celsius, and I am not wearing this hat for decoration. I am wearing this hat because it is freaking cold. So, I'm going to be honest with you guys. When it comes to these dogs, I am taking less of them these days. I am not doing it to the level that I was doing it before. Sorry, guys. The chat seems to have frozen on me. Where's the chat? I'll make sure you guys are still alive here. What happened? Anyways, I hope the chat's still working. Yeah, I'm not doing as many of these dogs nowadays. And I'll tell you why I'm not doing as many of these dogs. The juice is not worth the squeeze. When I first started in dog training, professionally, that is, okay? I'm not talking about actually learning how to train dogs. When I first started in dog training, I did a ton of these dogs. And I did a ton of these dogs because when you first start, you're getting all the dogs that no one else is willing to deal with, right? In many cases. You're getting all the dogs that no one else is willing to touch, no one else is willing to risk training and dealing with. And I had no choice. I had to train these dogs, I had to figure out how to do it, and I had to figure out how to do it properly. The reality is when you train dogs like this, it is extremely dangerous. Because as we mentioned, this is not, a lot of people think of it as like, oh, like he doesn't really want to do that. He's not like that on purpose. He just needs to be shown a better way. He needs peace and love. He needs this. He needs that, right? But what you don't realize is when the dog is about that life, when the dog is 100% motivated, right, and intent-based in their behavior, they do want to do that. That's why they're so intent on the behavior. I always put it to people like this, so, sorry guys, I'm not seeing anything in the chat that is completely abnormal. Before I continue, I need to see that we are still live. Yeah, we are still live. I don't know why the chat's, let's see, restore chat. Yeah, see, look at that. It went dead for a second there. I don't know what's going on with the chat. Let me pop it out again. There we go. Okay. All right. What happened there? Anyways, moving forward. A lot of people tend to view these behaviors as like undesirable, right? Like, sorry, not undesirable. It's like the dog doesn't really want to do these behaviors. I always put it to people like this, because you'll get a lot of trainers. They'll say stupid things like, oh, I'm just you can't, correct this behavior. You have to change the emotion behind the behavior. If you change the emotion behind the behavior, the dog won't do this anymore. And I always say, okay, so you take a border collie who's getting after, let's say, sheep, okay? You got a border collie. He loves going after sheep. He loves herding sheep. He loves stalking sheep. Are you going to change the emotion behind that? Why aren't you going to change the emotion behind that? Because anybody who knows anything about dogs knows you're never going to change the emotion of a border collie, a working border collie who wants to herd sheep. Let's say, you get a Belgian Malinois that loves playing tug, right? Loves tugs, is insane for tugs, is a crackhead for tug. Are you going to change the emotion behind that? Are you going to give that dog treats and play threshold games and, convince the dog that they don't really want to do that anymore? Of course not. That's asinine. It's a stupid thing to say. Why don't people view aggression the same way, right? Not all of it, right? Not all of it, but some of it. Some of it is, like, don't get me wrong, a lot of aggression, people love to put everything in a single box. A lot of aggression, whether it's towards dogs or humans or whatever else you want to name, a lot of aggression is specific, right? It's learned behavior. There might be a genetic component, just like there's a genetic component to a dog that likes to play with the ball, but then there's the dog that will die for the ball. Those are two very different things. Like, as somebody that trains a lot of working dogs, I get a lot of clients in here. They have a nice, like, little working line German Shepherd or something. They bring it in. The dog likes the ball. The dog will play with the ball, but the dog doesn't die for the ball. The dog doesn't view the ball the same way somebody who's addicted to crack views crack cocaine. When you see a dog who's like that, his eyes are bugging out of his head. He's literally shaking at the prospect of having the ball. And he will go to the end of the earth for the ball. He will work till death do us part for the ball. Like, if you throw the ball over the cliff, most likely he will jump over the cliff for the ball. That is the level of drive I'm talking about. Like, he won't think. Like, he's so laser focused on that ball. That ball is everything for him, which is why he's going to do that for the ball, right? There are dogs that are like that for aggression towards humans or towards other dogs. Thankfully, they're not so common, but there certainly are dogs that have that level of enthusiasm and commitment to being aggressive, right? And to engaging in the acts of aggression. So how are you going to change that dog's emotion? How are you going to change his emotion? The underlying emotion, right? This is what all the positive only trainers or the positive only adjacent trainers say. I will change the emotion. I don't punish the behavior. Punishing the behavior doesn't work. I will change the emotion. How do you change his emotion? Because it's not an emotional problem, right? It's in his chromosomes. It's in his DNA to do that. Again, thankfully, there are not so many that fall into that category. A lot of people that say they have like so-called crazy cases and really bad cases. In many cases, it's actually not that bad, right? It was, you've built the dog up to the point where he's at by, you know, doing things that are half-assed, by playing around with the behavior instead of directly addressing the behavior, by avoiding the problem instead of addressing the problem. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about dogs that are truly committed to the act of fucking you up, or fucking up somebody else, or fucking up another dog. Who said Doberman? Very few of them. A tiny proportion of them. You know, I've definitely seen some with behavioral problems, but nothing on the level that I'm talking about. David Cross says, I have a 150-pound Cane Corso. I'm missing part of my chin. Yep. I've seen a few Cane Corsos that fall into that. You know, here's the thing, guys. You don't change that emotion. You don't change that emotion because I don't care what anybody online says. I guarantee you none of those people will actually show you one of those dogs, right? Now, I show you guys a little bit of something. And here's the thing. I'll talk about some of the dogs in my career, but here's the thing, okay? On the flip lead. The danger with this dog, the danger with this dog is that, sit down here quickly. There, and that's the thing, right? Positive only. Oh, you guys can't see it. Hold on. Hold on. Now, this dog is a bad motherfucker. This dog will hurt you. That's the thing, right? Right? Positive only training. I remember some clowns. He's just being kind of aggressive. Just go inside. He'll be good after you go inside. My God, man. Luckily, I'm not inexperienced. Imagine if I listened to those guys. I'd be in the hospital for sure, right? This dog had aggression contingent upon specific triggers being met, right? Like his aggression is primarily motivated by resource guarding, or if he doesn't know you and you try to get too handsy with him, he gets like that, right? But primarily, like even with the handler, you'll see that aggression is primarily motivated by resource guarding behavior. Resource guarding of the kennel and resource guarding of food, if there's food in the kennel, something like this. But it's not like just, you know, he will fuck you up. Like if I was to put my hand in there, for sure I get mauled. You know what I mean? If I was to try and walk in, for sure I get mauled. And mauled badly. But this is not, you know, I know you guys know this dog, right? But this is not a bad case. This is, believe it or not, it's a dangerous case, but it's not a bad case, okay? Like, you guys know the dogs like, you know, Kevin and dogs like this. But this is not the worst cases that I've dealt with, right? These are the dogs that you guys see on YouTube. These are not the dogs that I really cut my teeth on, right? These are the dogs you see on YouTube. The dogs that I cut my teeth on are dogs that, for the most part, you will not see on video. I have video of one of them, and I'll show him in a little bit. You won't really see too much in the video, because it was back in the day before I was really, like, making videos, like making a lot of, like, you know, in-depth videos, and I just kind of caught a little bit of the behavior and stuff like this. But, you know, what a lot of people don't realize is it is so bone deep, you will not change the emotion. You will not convince the dog not to do anything, right? You will not convince that dog not to be bad by giving him treats at a certain time and playing with his thresholds and building a play-based relationship with him, or whatever the fuck you want to come up with, right? The only thing you can do with dogs like that, the dogs that are truly committed, the dogs that are about that life, is you can suppress the behavior enough that there is enough of a barrier between the behavior, right, actualizing in the real world, that you have time to either avoid it or prevent it before it actualizes. And I'll explain that. So let's say, again, I'll use something that most people should understand. I have a dog who likes to chase squirrels, okay? He likes to chase squirrels. For whatever reason, I've decided that chasing squirrels is a bad thing. So I take the dog through the whole training process. You know, I teach him real functional obedience, very important part of the process. I build a play-based relationship with him. I play ball with him. I play tug with him, whatever. And then I finally put him in situations where he has the choice to chase squirrels, and I correct him severely for making the wrong choice up until the point where he will not chase the squirrels, especially if I'm around. And I see that there's an inhibition, a deep inhibition in the dog to chase the squirrels. He might still sometimes look at them and get a little shaky when he looks at them and kind of zone out on them a little bit, but he doesn't actually do it for the most part, right? There's a barrier there. There's a barrier there. There's an obstacle. I've created artificially a threshold to the behavior of chasing squirrels expressing itself, right? But that is not the same thing as changing the emotion behind the behavior. Because the emotion is still there. It's in his DNA. It's in his chromosomes. How am I going to change that? Right? Doesn't make any sense. I don't know, guys, why the chat keeps timing out. So I'm just going to keep popping it back in and out, you know. And then I'll go and look at the questions and stuff like this. Right? So, you're going to change his behavior. You're not going to change the emotion of that dog. That's real, okay? Now, I know some trainers will swear up and down, yeah, Haz, you're wrong. We're going to change his behavior. We're going to play with him. We're going to do pre-mac. We're going to do cognitive behavioral therapy. You know, I'm going to tickle his nuts, whatever you want to come up with, right? You're never really going to change what he wants to do deep down inside, because that is literally in his chromosomes. It's in his bones. It's in his skin. It's in his mind. It's in his heart. Literally everything in his being predisposes him towards performing that behavior. But you can put a threshold to it, right? You can put a threshold in front of it. And now you have some breathing space, right? You have some breathing space where you can see the behavior coming and you have the time to either address the behavior or manage your way through the behavior. That's what good training does with those types of dogs. But guess what? It's a dirty process. It's not an easy process. All right? When I get dogs, and I'm going to tell you guys for free on here what exactly I do, okay? When I get dogs that are truly committed to being aggressive, the first thing I do is actually not correct the aggression unless it's like I can't even start training. Like, we can't even start training because, like, he's just that dangerous. And we've had a few like that. It's truly unpleasant, right? So, in that case, you basically have to force the beginning of training, right? I don't have a month to make friends with the dog, right? Like, I got 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks to train that dog on the worst case scenario. I don't have a month to sit around throwing cookies into the pen and hoping he decides that we're friends and I can put a leash on him. It's just not happening. So I'm going to find a way to get him out, whether it's with a catch pole, with something else. I get him out. I stop feeding him from a bowl. All the food comes directly from an interaction with me. I get this dog out and I start the training process. In some cases with these dogs, in many cases, I don't like to use the muzzle, by the way, because many of these dogs are wise to the muzzle. In some cases, I will muzzle the dog just because the safety is like, it's so unsafe and it's so dangerous, right, that you got no choice. You got to use a muzzle. You know what I mean? And then getting a muzzle on these dogs, right? A lot of the time, they're not cooperative for the muzzle. They don't want you to put the muzzle on. So what do? You can put food in the muzzle. He doesn't give a shit. You ever try to put muzzle on a dog that doesn't want to have a muzzle on him? That is not pretty. I showed it in a YouTube video. Let me see if I can find that video. I showed in the video. It's not a pretty process, and it's not an easy process, and it's not a safe process, right? If the dog is really, really committed to the behavior of being aggressive. So, like, you'll get two types. You'll get the dogs that are hyper reactive, like their aggression is based on being triggered. Like they respond really strongly to certain triggers. So like being touched on the back of the neck, for instance, can be like an enormous trigger for these dogs. You trying to take a collar on or put a collar off, take a collar off or put a collar on can be an enormous trigger for these dogs. I had a couple that would literally try to eat you if you offered them a hot dog. Like they'd be kind of normal, and then you'd be like, "Good boy, here you go," and they'd teeth and just come for you. Like, you know, they can have different triggers, and a lot of dogs have a lot of dogs that you get in for behavioral modification, they have these triggers, okay? They have different little things that they do, but they're not like committed. You say, hey, knock that shit off, and you correct them once or twice firmly. It's done, you know what I mean? It's done, but there are occasionally those that are very committed. They're very committed, so their behavior is either proactive or it's reactive, okay? Proactive means they really enjoy doing it and they proactively look for opportunities to express that behavior. Reactive means it's contingent on you doing some things. Usually it's more than one thing. I've rarely ever seen a dog that's very good except for one thing. Whether it's resource guarding type behaviors, whether it's you touching them like they're sweet as pie until you try and take a collar on or off, or you try to brush them or something like that. Again, the vast majority of dogs that fall into the reactive category are not uber committed, but there's occasionally some that are so committed. And when you try to stop them, when you try to say, no, you cannot do that, they escalate to a level where it's literally a danger to you and a danger to somebody else, right? Let me see if I can find this. Canine muzzle. See if I can find this. Okay. So this dog was not actually particularly bad, but he was a little bit of a nasty
hair
border
repair
collie.
that doesn't cost $50?
Let me minimize this stuff here. I show a little bit of the process here. Sorry guys, I moved the chat. The hair commercial is almost over. There we go. Okay. So this dog was really nasty about putting the muzzle
on a lot of the behavior dogs that we have.
Come on now.
Today, we're talking
What's going
about
on with
muzzle
all these
training
ads,
and how
man?
to make that a positive
What's with this
experience for
YouTube
your
guy?
dog. We're going
Oh,
to
this
do
is
that the way that
this is somebody else. Sorry.
I've been saying that we need to be a little.
How did her video
that was
pop
him
up?
touching his paw with the sedation
And I didn't show all of it.
of the muzzle.
So look at this.
As
This
you
is
can
common,
see here,
right?
Needless to say, Chase
You offer
isn't
the
interested
muzzle,
in the muzzle.
right?
He's either
Little
in avoidance
whoa.
or he's resorting to aggression to escape the
And this is
problem.
after
That's
some
part of
training,
the whole
by the
issue
way.
that we're facing here with Chase is that he's learned that he can be aggressive. If we're
This is
put in
after some
situations
training. You
that
can see
are
the dog's
uncomfortable.
panting,
And
right? Like this
unfortunately,
isn't like the
it's a
first time we did it.
situation.
This is
Who's
after
to
a
say
little
when the
bit.
dog is
This is
going
still
to
how he's doing. But you can kind of see it. And I told you guys, this isn't a super bad case.
Get that muzzle on him.
But you see like the reaction to the muzzle. And you see the what the trainer is doing, right? Like it's not an accident he's using a slip lead, right? Use a slip lead because if the dog tries to eat you over the muzzle or he tries to come around the muzzle to bite your hand, you can quickly pacify him with the slip lead. The other thing I'll do with the slip lead as well, okay, is I will make the dog uncomfortable with upward pressure. And when the muzzle goes on the dog's face, I will release the pressure. So that's some free game for you guys as well with dogs that don't want to be muzzled.
Really quickly that if him or trick him into it.
And you can see it's a process, man. Like sometimes, literally, our first sessions are just getting that muzzle on the dog's head. I know we got it on him. I don't want to watch through the whole
Well
thing.
aware that I'll probably
There
get
it
some
is.
flack for putting this up.
Here, I'll maybe you guys will
Spending
see
a
what
lot
I'm
of time
talking
and
about
money
here.
bringing him here to us.
So it's like
but
pressure
the work
on
that
with the
he's
slip
done.
lead, muzzle goes on,
I'm well
release the
aware
pressure,
that,
let him
I'll
just
probably get
chill
some
out
flack
with the
for
muzzle
putting this up
on,
the channel,
right?
Even though it's really minor stuff, some people.
Again, this one wasn't so bad. We've had ones where they mauled the muzzle 1,000 times. See, he learns to just chill out with the muzzle on, right? And then he learns that he gets free time and fun time with the muzzle on. But this is muzzle training, okay? So, like, this isn't even, like I said, a bad case. I'm going to show you guys one of a more particularly bad dog that we did deal with in the past. I'm not going to do it yet, though. We got to talk about this a little more. Okay, so when we talk about, so we have to get the dog to the point where we can handle him, and then you got to functionally obedience train the dog. Usually in the functional obedience training process, remember what functional obedience is. It's not obedience like, hey, man, do you feel like doing this? This obedience like, you got to do it, right? Because I've said it before, I'll say it again. These dogs all say no a lot, right? They're used to saying no, and they're used to getting their way when they say no. And they're used to, like, if you try to make them, they're used to resorting to being aggressive to get their way, right? So the first part of the process is to teach the dog that they must say yes. And we get the dog saying yes as much as we can. right? Before we actually start addressing the aggression in and of itself, right? That's a really important part of the process. Once we've got the dog saying yes, and we take the dog through our functional obedience training system, again, guys, this is all available online, my reactive rehab course, my lead off leash course, so on and so forth. But either way, okay, either way, you must create this. And this takes weeks to do, and usually throughout that entire process, you're going to run into protest, where the dog says no, 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 and you say yes, yes, yes. You try to teach him to lie down. He will lie down for the food. The second you say, okay, no more food, now I'm fading the lure, and you must lie down because I've asked you to lie down, and you make some negative reinforcement that you've layered inappropriately in the process. At that point, he says, fuck you, I'm going to bite your hand, I don't want to lie down, I don't feel like it. Then you go through that process. You try to put the muzzle on. He says, today I don't feel like the muzzle, I'm going to maul you, I don't want to wear it. You force him to wear the muzzle. You show him that he cannot win. And you take him through the functional obedience. I don't want to come when I'm called. I don't want to heel. I want to smell the other dog. I want to, bite your hand when you touch me on the collar, so on and so forth. And you go through all of this, and you teach him that no must be yes, right? And you get him used to saying yes, or you get him more used to saying yes. Usually these types of dogs, there's no accident. They're also very prone to saying no when it comes to things, okay? Again, you can try all your bullshit training with cookies and clickers and convincing the dog to do it. And if you have a very food-motivated dog, don't get me wrong, you will get far with the food training. Here's the problem. The problem isn't that the dog can't learn to do things for cookies and clicker, in some cases, right? The problem is that that's not the problem in the fucking first place. The problem in the first place is that he perceives that there is a possibility to say no if he doesn't feel like doing it. That's where all the issues stem from with these types of dogs. And you need to change that no to a yes. And you're not going to bribe him into changing his behavior. You're not going to create inhibition towards that chromosome deep behavior with bribery. It's going to be no, mofo. I told you. Usually these dogs have very type A personalities, and they respond to type A style of training. Now, of course, don't get me wrong. You must do it in a smart way. If you think you're going to Caesar Milan that shit, you're going to walk in there and alpha roll him and, psht him and show him who the big dog is. Good luck to you. He didn't get that way. He isn't that way because he's the kind of dog that crumbles so easily. And you aren't Caesar Milan. You're not going to pull that off. You're going to get bit. You're going to get messed up, right? And there's a lot of people that comment online and that talk a lot of shit that are, they just haven't ever had a dog come up the leash at them in any kind of meaningful way. They haven't been put in the hospital. And it really shows in the stupid things that they say. Sorry, guys, I got to puff this once in a while or it's going to go out. Anyways, you functionally obedience train that dog, and then here's the part that a lot of people don't like, okay? Usually the functional obedience training process can be a little bit easier, can be harder, depends on the dog, right? Some dogs are like okay more with the obedience training, but the specific thing that sets them off is what is the thing, right? And then there's some dogs, they will fight you every step of the way, okay? Again, I'm talking about 1%. I'm talking about the 1%. Most people that think they have this, they really don't. They just have a dog that has some like shitty learned behavior with a touch of genetic predisposition. But the ones, the real freaks, the ones that are so committed, they will literally kill themselves to try to be able to do this. They will bite the hand that feeds. They have bitten their owners multiple times. They have put people in the hospital. They have killed other dogs. These are the type of dogs I'm talking about. Thankfully, 1%. But I ended up with my fair share of them throughout my career here at Shield because we were the only ones, and as far as I know, we pretty much are still the only ones that will truly deal with these types, right? So with these types, the only way, functionally obedience train the dog. Get him out of this fucking habit of saying no. He cannot say no anymore, okay? Number 2, you must, once you have the functional obedience mostly done, and if you can get him to play with you, even better. But once you have him mostly there, from an obedience perspective, okay? You must begin to push his buttons, right? Dogs are very stimulus response based in what they do. If these things, if these contingencies are met, I do this, right? And a lot of the time, like I said, especially for those dogs that are truly committed, it is so deep. There's no thought process behind it. You do this, I do that. It's fast as lightning, and it's really hard, and it's really committed. And if you're not ready, you're going to get messed up, right? That's the type of behavior I'm talking about. So guess what you do? Once you start getting them used to saying yes, you now put them in that situation. Oh, you don't like it when I touch your collar. Okay, I touch your collar now. I touch it, I touch it, I touch it. Whoop, there you go. And now you show him why that's a horrific idea to do, and you create inhibition around it. Again, we're talking about committed cases here, guys. We're talking about real ones. The ones that most trainers have never had, or if they had them, the dog would have killed them, right? Or they're smart enough to they will never admit it on the internet. But those are the dogs where they say, there's a wire cross. There's something wrong with him. Give him medication, give him the blue juice, put him down, right? And then the dogs end up here at Shield, right? And that was years, man. Years we've been getting these types of dogs. And I'll talk to you about that too, like why I've cut it down. Anyways. You start pushing his buttons. And you find the buttons that you push, right? Usually the owners will tell you what the problem is. You push those buttons, you try to get him to do the wrong thing, and you show him why it's the wrong thing. And you start creating inhibitions towards that unconscious stimulus response situation he has, right? Until you can create some inhibition, some pause in his behavior that then gives you time, right? That gives you time. When the dog is quick on the stimulus response, you don't have time. But when you can create a threshold, right? When you can thicken and build the threshold towards the dog expressing that behavior, you give yourself this priceless thing called time. So you can make a mistake, or something bad can happen, or you can be incautious for a second and you don't end up in the hospital. That's big. That is really, really big. And a lot of people, don't understand this concept. So they fuck around with the dog and they play games and they think he's their buddy. What you have to understand is this dog can love you. He'll still mess you up in a heartbeat. You know what I mean? There's no like, oh, he loves me so much he would never do that to me, right? These types of dogs, they don't have friends. They have people they like and they have people they love, but they will do what they do, no matter who you are or what you are. And that's what some people really have trouble wrapping their mind around, okay? So unless you create inhibition around that behavior, unless you make it so horrific for the dog to express that behavior, that you transcend what the genetics that he has inside of him. You transcend the chromosomes. You transcend them enough now that you have a barrier to the behavior. You create inhibition around the behavior. And every day you add to that inhibition. Every day you manage your way and train your way into making that inhibition bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So that now, even though the dog is still fundamentally the same dog, you have a dog that can appear to be safe. You have a dog that you can actually do things with. You have a dog that you can coexist with, of course, under specific contingencies. But your job, my job as a trainer, is to push the buttons, right? Once I train the dog, I must push the buttons. So, by pushing the buttons, like I said already, touching the collar, whatever it is, food, touching the paws, yelling. Some dogs don't like yelling, so I yell, sit down. I'll do it on purpose. I'm not here to make friends with the dog, right? Like if I can be friends with the dog, great. But that's not my priority. It doesn't mean I'm mean to him. It means that I know what my job is. My job is, in a short period of time, the time that I have with this dog, I must get him to the point that he has a real inhibition. Not appears to have an inhibition. That's easy to do on the internet, by the way. Oh, look, he's all fixed. You see it all the time, Oh, look, he was aggressive, and now he's my buddy, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, bro, that's not a truly fixed dog, right? That's a dog that you've made friends with and you've built a relationship with. You haven't actually fixed him. You guys see, like, for those of you that followed my process with Mace and with Kevin, what did I do with those dogs, right? And neither Mace nor Kevin is a truly bad case, just so you know. Mace is definitely more dangerous than Kevin, and Mace will put you into hospital if you don't know what you're doing, a lot more likely than Kevin will. But in both cases, what did I do? I took the dog out, I trained the dog, and I inhibited the bad behaviors as much as possible. Especially with Mace, what did I do? I did so much obedience and impulse control training with the dog. Giving myself enough space that hopefully if the worst happened, there's some threshold to the behavior expressing itself that, and I have enough control over the dog that I can get myself out of the situation. Or if the situation occurs, at least it won't be as bad as it would be if he was completely out of control. Right? Yeah, you ask about the dog named Danger. Same thing. Same thing, right? Like he was aggressive over just about anything. Anything he wanted to do. He'd come at you if you tried to stop him from pissing on a tire. You know, a lot of people don't comprehend a dog like that. Like you would be taking him out, feeding him, training him for months. And if one day he's trying to pee on a car tire, you pull him away from it, he's coming for you, right? Like that's the kind of dog it is. Right? People don't understand it. Oh, he's got a wire cross. Maybe he's got a wire cross, but you still got to deal with it. Right? Just like a dog that chases squirrels. I know he wants to chase squirrels with every ounce of his being. I still got to have control over that behavior. I won't ever, here's again, an analogy that should help you guys. The dog that chases squirrels, I can create an inhibition around chasing the squirrels, and I can create a threshold to that behavior that is meaningful. But that doesn't mean I trust him alone in a room with a squirrel. At some point, he will break. At some point, he will do it. Let's say I had a squirrel that was like my pet. And this dog loved chasing and killing squirrels. So I said, okay, well, you're my dog and you're my squirrel. This squirrel is my pet. I can't allow you to kill my pet. So I train the dog. I create a ton of inhibition around him chasing the squirrel. He gets used to the squirrel being around all the time. And anytime he shows like on inappropriate behavior towards a squirrel, I correct him. I keep suppressed and I keep the threshold in place between him and the expression of the behavior of chasing and killing the squirrel. Doesn't mean I trust him alone in the room with a squirrel. Doesn't mean at some point the squirrel might not do something that causes the behavior to explode past the threshold that I have erected between it and the expression. Of course not. Any reasonable person knows at some point we might have a slip up here. At some point, my squirrel might get eaten. It's the same with these types of dogs, and very few people understand it. So look, I've talked to you guys about the process. Here's the unpleasant thing. Very few of you guys, and very few of the people that talk on the internet, have ever really, like I said, dealt with a dog that really wants to hurt them, and have also dealt with telling that type of dog no, and correcting that dog to the level that is necessary to effectively suppress that behavior. That is a dark place. That is a dark place. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'd do it if I have to. You know, he's bit us 3 times. He's put us in the hospital. You know, this is his last chance. If he can't be successful here, we're gonna have to put him down. Hey, we have the appointment to put him down. You're the last stop on the road. You know, if you guys can't fix it, no one can. That's it. We've been through 3 behaviorists. He's been on the medication. We've been to 6 dog trainers. Bro, I've heard all these stories, right? This is it. This is it. You know how many of my trainers, including myself, have been injured, have been to the hospital? A lot of us. A lot of us. We've been to the hospital. Not with small shit, right? You guys remember Hef? Lost half his finger there, right? It's not a joke dealing with these types of dogs, right? It's not a joke. They are very dangerous. What you have to do to effectively suppress that behavior in these extreme cases, right, is not pleasant. It's not pleasant. You would never want to see it. You'll never, I take no joy in it. I know it's necessary. I know it's necessary. No one's been able to show me otherwise. Believe me. If someone said, look, Haz, those dogs, that dog, you know, that's bitten 3 people and is going to get the blue juice. If you just give them the hot dogs like this, all that other shit is unnecessary. You don't have to, you don't think I'd fucking do that? I would love to do that. I wish. If you just play with the ball with him like this, if you just, you know, work the thresholds a little bit, do this, do that, you'll change everything. You'll change his emotion. You don't think I'd do that? You don't think we would do that? How do you think I got where I am? right? How do you think my company and my training got where it is? Because we took those dogs and we did what no one else was willing to do or no one else was able to do. Sometimes it's a bit of both, right? And we went through it, and we went through it a lot with those real ones, with those nasty ones. And the owners are in my reviews. You read my reviews, you hear what people say, right? Those are the people, some of those people in those reviews had one of those dogs. Doesn't mean I enjoy the process, and it doesn't mean that I enjoy being in danger and that I enjoy the danger that my trainers, the few of them that I trust with those types of cases, have to deal with. Steven, Hef, myself, Sal, when he was here, other people that I won't name right now, we've all been to the hospital. We've all been to the hospital. We've all had some real damage done. You know what I mean? It's no joke, guys. It is really no joke. And I can't express that enough. And the process, it's not... I really hope that I can convey that it is not an easy process. It is not an easy process. It's not a slick process. You know, that's the problem with online today. I've said it before, I say it again. Everybody tries to throw... If you just, you know, you do this little thing and that little thing. And little things don't work to get rid of these behaviors. These behaviors that are truly bone deep. These behaviors that every chromosome in the dog's body orients him towards. Killing other dogs, biting the handler when he doesn't like something the handler's doing, going after other people, whatever it is. Sarah says, the problem is many people apply human psychology principles to dogs, then judge a balanced trainer's process instead of their outcomes. You can apply human psychology to dogs, Sarah. The prison's full of people. The prison is full of people like the dogs we talked about that share very similar traits, right? A lot of the worst people in our society share some of those traits, right? They get off on hurting others, or there's something in them that leads them to overreact to various social or environmental stimuli that causes them to do horrific things, and they do great damage to society and those people around them. Here's what I always propose. Okay, force-free training, positive training, whatever. Like, even if you're one of these balanced trainers, that's what I call positive-only training adjacent. You're always preaching, you know, minimally aversive. Minimally aversive. It is a word, a phrase that people use. Okay, take society. Get rid of the police, get rid of the justice system, get rid of the prisons. Give everybody, I don't know, give everybody $1 million every year for being good. If you're good, you get $1 million a year. If you're bad, you just don't get your $1 million. That's it, right? Don't speed, don't kill, don't steal, don't rape, don't do anything that, you know, think of all the things that people do, right? From small to major, right? Everybody gets $1 million if they don't commit a crime. Is there going to be any more pedophilia? Is there going to be any more murder? Is there going to be any more theft? Is there going to be any more assault? Are people going to speed? Unless you're an idiot, you know the answer to these questions. Of course they will. Will it be in the same level? Maybe not. For sure not, actually. A lot of people will take that $1 million and be good boys and girls. But there are, again, we're not talking about the average person. We're talking about those of us that are oriented towards a certain thing, right? Positive reinforcement is not the only thing that motivates people. And what is positive reinforcement, right? The liver treat for the dog, the ball, the tug, whatever, your praise, your hugs, your kisses, whatever you want to come up with, okay? I've seen the positive only trainer allowing her dog to hump her as a reward. Okay, even that, okay? There are some dogs that would prefer to bite somebody over all of those things. There are some dogs that would prefer to fight and kill another dog over all of those things. What then do you do? Just as there are people that will say, forget your $1 million. I'm going to kill that guy because I get off on killing people. I get off on hurting people. You know, I get off on hurting kids. Whatever you want to come up with. Whatever sin, crime, whatever. Right? This is reality. And when you look at dogs like that, and you understand that there are some dogs like that, especially dogs, like they're not creatures with a moral compass. They're animals that act off of instinct. At least humans, generally beings capable of higher level cognition. Some of them have a moral compass, some of them do not. This is the reality. So when you're dealing with dogs like this, when you're dealing with these committed cases, small things don't work. What's the word? Incentivizing the dog to offer alternate behaviors will not work. They won't truly get rid of the behavior, or at least inhibit the behavior enough that you're safe enough, or as safe as you can be, right? This is reality. It's the unpleasant, unvarnished truth that people don't want to hear. Now, some of you, I'm sure, will watch this and say, Haz, you're full of shit. You're just not a smart trainer like my mentor or this person on the internet that's talking their nonsense, or that person or whatever. Okay, fine. I don't care. Train those dogs then. Train them. Oh, we train them. No, you don't. You don't fucking train those dogs. We know you don't train those dogs. Right? There are very few people that actually train those dogs. Train those dogs and make meaningful results with those dogs. I'm not talking about you had them for a week, you threw some hot dogs at them, and you tickled them on maybe an e-collar at the worst a few times, and you made a little video, and then that's it. No, I'm talking like you had the dog and you fully trained the dog, and you got the behaviors inhibited enough that the owners are like a year later saying like he's still good, like like it's working, like we're living with him, we take him off leash for walks, This is from a dog with like severe bite history and severe like high level commitment to performing that behavior. So, as I said, back in the day, up until like, listen, we just had one of those dogs recently, to be honest with you. And he was a nasty one, man. So committed. So committed. To the point where he almost like would kill himself in order to perform the behavior. Like literally he was willing to die to perform the behavior of being aggressive towards you, coming after you for things he didn't like, right? But generally, we used to have like regularly, like at least every other month we would have one. Now, thankfully, we've got it to like every 4 or 5 months we have one. And the reality is the juice isn't worth the squeeze. It's very dangerous training those types of dogs. The handlers have to be really, really on point with their management after the fact. If they're not on point with their management after the fact, the training will deteriorate and the chromosome genetic behavior will re-express itself, right? And a lot of people aren't ready or willing to live with a dog like that the way you have to be ready or willing to live with that type of dog. And do the things that you have to do in certain circumstances if certain situations arise. Very few people are willing to do that, right? So here's the thing. Here's the thing. And I already mentioned, I don't like part of the training. Like, I don't like some of the training process that you have to go through with these dogs. As I mentioned already, it's not only dangerous, it takes a toll on you. It's not easy to do, A lot of people like that are weird, like you see a lot of like weird like emotional people, like they think you get off, like there's a lot of like people accuse you, oh look at you, you think you're a big man correcting that dog? It's like, no, I don't. I actually really don't enjoy this, but I understand that it's a necessity, an unpleasant necessity, that if I don't do it, no one else will, and his ass is going to get killed, right? So it's one of those things, right, where it's like it takes a toll, and I'm comfortable now moving forward, and we will see these dogs now in private sessions. Like I always will try to do private sessions. I don't like doing board and trains with these types of dogs. Private sessions I find is the best way to deal with these types of dogs, because then the owner is involved in every aspect of the process, and if they're not willing to do it in the private sessions, it's not going to work generally anyways, But we used to do a ton of board and trains with these types. So when we talk about this type of behavior, we talk about learned behavior, okay? There are dogs that can learn to bite the handler. There are dogs that can learn to be dog aggressive, and there are dogs that can learn to be human aggressive. But the great thing with learned behavior is very easy to correct. What they learn, they can unlearn very quickly. But when it's chromosome deep, when it's genetic, and it's genetic expressed to the highest degree. Remember, genetic behavior is a spectrum. It can be a little bit, right? And I think most any behavior, whether it's reactivity or anything else, has a genetic component to it. Or it can be extreme. If you don't believe me, look at ball drive, okay? There's dogs that like the ball, they'll chase the ball, they'll play with the ball for like 5 minutes. And there's dogs, as I've already said, will literally die for the ball. You throw it over a cliff. Most people have actually not seen, I find that people that haven't really been around working dogs have not seen that level of drive and commitment for a ball, right? Where the dog's like, literally like shaking, drooling, eyes staring, like won't look away for the ball. Like I have to be careful with my dog Chico, right? My new dog. Like he has such extreme ball drive that like if I throw the ball wrong, he will break his back trying to get the ball. Like he'll jump and twist and explode in such a way that he would literally, like right now he's on crate rest because he went after the ball so hard he injured himself a little bit. Like when I play ball, like when I play with him, like when I reward him, I have to be careful when I reward him on my artificial turf because the artificial turf is made out of plastic. And when he's coming after the ball, he goes so hard after the ball that like he will slide on the turf and he will literally burn like his nails or break his nails every time he plays with the ball. Like I train many high drive dogs in here. I've never seen that before, right? But he's such extreme drive that he will injure himself every single time if I'm not careful, if I do the wrong thing. Throw the ball on cement, he's going to break his teeth. You have to understand this. You know what I mean? It's not something that a lot of people have seen. It's not an extremity that a lot of people have seen. If you train the right dogs, you know what I'm talking about when I speak about extremes. And I've seen and trained dogs that will literally die before they stop the behavior. What you have to do to make them stop is not something that is pleasant, enjoyable, or something that I would wish upon anybody. Thankfully, it's a very small minority of dogs that are like this. The vast majority of dogs are a couple of firm corrections away. Hey, don't do that. Okay, sorry, no problem, right? That's what most of the monsters fall into the category of, right? But these ones, these extreme cases that I'm talking about, it's not pretty. The results are worth it if you can get to those results, but it's not pretty. And quite frankly, like I said, I'm out of that game. Let me see now. Where's this dog? I'll show you a dog, guys. I'll show you a dog from way back in the day. Where is he? Husky. Okay. This dog was a piece of work. Oh, let me see. Shield canine. He was a real nasty guy. Okay, listen, look at this dog now. Look at this, man. These are like the old videos. So this was like, here, I'll move the chat. Okay. So this dog, you're seeing like not even 1/10 of his behavior. Again, remember guys, this was like before I like knew how to make videos and stuff like this, right? So bear with the horrible editing and the terrible quality, right? This was Blake. Okay? You can see he's kind of like, nah. You know, he's just being a bit of an asshole in the kennel. This was after we got into the training a little bit. So Blake was one of these dogs that was like extremely dominant, right? Like he wasn't... he was extremely dominant, and if you tried to make him do anything he didn't want to do, he would get after you, and he wouldn't get after you in a small way. He would get after you like looking to really mess you up. He had a pretty big, extensive bite history. He bit his owners multiple times. And these are people, you know, like they love the dog. They had him since a puppy. Very like, you know, well-off, nice people. They loved him, you know. They treated him like a baby, right? And he grew into this dominant male husky, right? And if you tried to make Blake do anything he didn't want to do or take anything away from him he didn't want you to take away, he would put you in the hospital. And that was his MO, right? So, let me see here. Right? You can see a little bit. That's me just saying, hey, Blakey, how you doing, buddy? Right? And he wouldn't go after, here's the thing with Blake, right? Like, he wouldn't go after people on the road. Like, if you're just walking by Blake or something like that, he wouldn't bother you, right? It's if he came up to you to smell you and you were like, hey, man, and you, like, tried to reach out to him, for sure you get bit in the hand. Or, like, if he came to you and you were, like, petting him and then maybe, like, touched his collar or his neck a little bit, boom, he's coming for you. This dog was, like, 6 years ago, this dog, right? Let's see. Anyways, he's just doing his bullshit behind the fence. Now, the real exciting shit that happened with Blake was all in training. It was all when there was no camera. Because it all came in the functional obedience training. It all came when we said, Blake, you have to sit when we ask you to sit. Blake, you have to lie down when we ask you to lie down. And Blake was food motivated. He liked his food. He was willing to do anything for his food. But at the end of the day, when there was a have to involved, like, I know you don't feel like lying down, but now you have to lie down, this is when he would get really bad. And those moments were definitely never caught on camera. This is me trying to make an ad way back when. So you look at the behavior of the dog, okay? You see some suppression. You still see the tail. The tail tells you a story, right? That's not a happy tail. That's a, I'm still a motherfucker tail. But the ears are like, but I got to listen to this guy. That's my brother's cell, by the way, right? This is what's important for us, was to get Blake fully functionally obedience trained. Getting him into the habit of saying yes, 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 yes. So some people will say, that dog looks a little suppressed. His ears are pinned. Fuck yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes, he does. Oh, Blake also liked to go after other dogs, especially small ones. I forgot about that too. It's been a while. So you can see there, concentrating. The tail's still up. It always was. His tail never, ever, ever went down for anything. You can see there. He's like, I don't want to lie down. Right? We took this asshole husky. We got rid of his most of the time when he said no, we got rid of it. Got rid of the resource guarding, got rid of the dog aggression. And we got him into the habit of saying yes. After, 4 weeks? This is the picture. Okay? Now some people, he could look more open, he could look more happy, blah, 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 blah. But that's not real life. Real life with a dog like this that leads to actually successful outcomes, right? With a dog like this, is you teaching him that he must. I know you don't want to lie on the wet pavement, Blake, right? I know you don't want to hold that down while this dog walks by, but you must. And the more he says yes, right? The more he says yes, and the more he does things he doesn't want to do, the greater inhibition he has to doing all those bad behaviors that got him to us in the first place and that was going to get him put down. You could still see a little bit the arousal there around the other dogs, but he understands, again, he must not. He must not, right? So anyways, that's enough. And I put that dog up because it's not like, I show you that type of dog because this is like a picture that we make at the end with this type of dog, right? Now with some of the dogs, for sure they look a little more open, they look a little more happy. With some of them, they look less. It's real life, man. It's real life. Do I care if his ears are pinned a little bit? Do I care if he shows a little bit of suppression, if he's a little stressed or worried at all? No, because sometimes stress and worry is good for a dog. Especially a dog like him that had zero inhibition towards coming after the handler whenever he didn't like something, right? Or had zero inhibition over going after other dogs. Is it wrong that this dog should feel some concern over being obedient, right? Or over listening, over controlling himself when in situations where he didn't normally control himself? Of course not. It's productive. It's productive. It's freaking good for him. unpopular opinion. Can't say that these days, right? Every dog has to be social, happy, open. If there isn't, something you did in the training was messed up. I guarantee you, there are very, very few trainers that will train a dog like that. And again, he was not the worst. The worst ones we don't have on the internet. And the thing with the worst ones too, like the really bad cases with dogs, those ones aren't so easy to catch unless you literally have a video camera all the time. Because they'll come at you over very specific things. And when they come at you, it's fast and you don't have time to, get the camera. No, it's happening right now. You have to deal with it. So let's talk about working dogs that are really aggressive. So I'll say this before people ask me, because I'm pretty well known for dealing with some pretty intense working dogs. And when people have control problems, so on and so forth, they'll come to me for training and I'll help them get control over their working dog or their canine or whatever. And I'm well known for being able to do this, okay? And being able to take these kinds of dogs. And it's because, again, I don't play Mr. Tough Guy. I'm not trying to do that, okay? You just have to be smart and realistic about dog behavior, where it comes from, so on and so forth, okay? With the working dogs, I tell you this, the most dangerous dogs that I ever dealt with in my career were not working dogs, they were pets. They were pets. They were not working dogs. Working dogs tend to be a little bit predictable when they're going to do something. So it's not that they weren't dangerous under the right circumstances. It's not that Mace wouldn't put you in the hospital if you screwed up, or a dog like Vasco wouldn't hurt you under the right. It's that it's more predictable. It's more predictable and you're more ready for it. Doesn't mean it won't happen. Just means it's more predictable and you're ready for it, which makes it safer. A lot of the pets wasn't as safe and they were extremely intent on doing something to you, right? The most dangerous ones, of course, we're talking about. Again, guys, I have to reiterate this. The 1%. Most people do not have... 99% of dogs are not like this. Thank God, by the way. Thank God. I'm talking about the 1%ers. I'm talking about the worst case scenario, right? Not, oh, my dog's reactive towards other dogs, or my dog nips me sometimes when I try to make him do something he does. No, I'm not talking about that. So anyways, with working dogs, there's this thing, people talking about real aggression and this and that and everything else. Okay? So dog like Mace, for instance, is a case in point. There is no future for these kinds of dogs. No future. And I'll tell you why there's no future. Police work. The police do not want aggressive handler, dogs that redirect on the handler, reactive dogs, so on and so forth. They want social, stable dogs that have high prey drive. Okay? That's what the police want. And I'll assume the military is the same. I'll assume the vast majority of people that buy dogs for law enforcement, even places that I don't know about, are the same. Okay? The days of selling man-eaters to the police are long gone. Right? They are done. If they were ever the case, they are, I'm sure in the past there were some departments would like to buy like really, crazy aggressive dogs, really nasty dogs. Those days are over. Okay? From a sport perspective, right? That's the breeding ground of all working dogs, whether anyone wants to admit it or not. All working dogs, for the most part, are made in dog sport now. Okay? And have been for many generations. Dog sport does not reward crazy aggressive dogs. In fact, from high-level competitions, if we're talking about IGP, and I think even some other sports, dogs that exhibit excessive levels of aggression, are unwilling to be, stand nicely for vet inspection, so on and so forth, are dismissed from competition. Again, social dogs, stable dogs, dogs that have high levels of prey drive, right? Doesn't mean the dog doesn't have any aggression. Don't get me wrong, but not the kind that I'm talking about. And then from a seller's perspective, from a vendor's perspective, I'm a vendor of dogs, okay? I sell dogs, train dogs. That's my business. I also sell green dogs, right? The amount of people that really want and can handle. I'm not talking about they talk about it on the internet. I mean, like, okay, I've got this dog Mace for sale. You better have a kennel for him. You're not going to be able to keep him in the crate in the beginning. The first couple of weeks is going to be really dicey. If you don't know what you're doing, you could get put in the hospital. Even after that, you can still end up in the hospital. How many people can really handle that type of dog? I'm going to tell you right now, less than like 0.05% of people that claim to be into these dogs can actually handle that type of dog, are willing to handle that type of dog, and will even pay anything more than like $1,000 for that kind of dog. In working dog world, these dogs are for the most part done. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people out there. They have some crazy dog. They don't know how to put control on the dog, okay? And it's a nice dog, maybe has high drive, whatever. And they're talking about how hard their dog is, how real their dog is, how their dog's too real for sport, blah, 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 blah. These people wouldn't have half the dog they had if there was any impulse control on the dog, right? And they just don't know how to train. So for them, the dog is it never occurs to them. It's like, yeah, I suck at training dogs. And that's why my dog's out of control. Not because he's such a badass, but just because I'm not a very good dog trainer and I don't know what I'm doing, right? But I don't know. You guys can take it. Like, it's up to you to decide if it's a good thing or a bad thing. But these types of dogs, like the really, really aggressive cases, like when it comes to working dogs, they're becoming more and more rare. There's just not a lot of use for them. I don't know if I'll ever have another one, to be honest with you. Okay, guys. I guess I'll go through the comments now. I've been talking for a while. Let's see here. And if you guys said hi, I'm sorry if I didn't say. I didn't say it back. Okay, let's get in here. I'm just going to go through and I see a lot of you guys in here. I'm just going to go through and answer specific questions that are interesting. Is predatory aggression the reason for the issues regarding the XL bullies in the UK? Does this come from pit bulls used in their lines or the mastiffs? I mean, a lot of bullies carry dog aggression, whether people that breed them want to admit it or not. And a lot of mastiffs and pit bulls also are dog aggressive. And you can take that however you want to take that. And they're dogs that are built and think and react in such a way that when they go after another dog, you know, they do a lot more damage than, let's say, your average German Shepherd would do. So, you know, I'm not familiar with why, the UK banned XL bullies. It could be that there was one too many dog attacks, and, politicians love to have the appearance that they're doing something, right? Even if they're not really doing anything. So that probably is the reason, right? Should you use a slip lead when working positions like sit down with pain activating dogs that will redirect? Depends on the dog, depends on the situation, but I'll tell you this, if your game is pain compliance, and don't get me wrong, like the vast majority of like balanced trainers, that is their game. No, I use negative reinforcement, blah, 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 blah. No, your game is pain compliance. You apply physical discomfort to the dog, right? Until the dog offers the desired behavior, at which point you release the physical discomfort, and maybe you give them a piece of food and maybe you don't, right? Now, if that's your game, there's nothing wrong with that. Say that's your game. Just be aware that with certain types of dogs, that game will get you eaten up, because there is no amount of pain compliance you can apply to that dog that is going to make him do what you want him to do. And what he's going to do when you put that physical discomfort on him is he's going to come for you. So I posted something recently. I posted a Malinois resource guarding. It's an old video that I actually had on me, right? Just a Malinois resource guarding a bowl of raw food. And then I post the after where he's like listening, sitting, leaving the bowl. and the dog's wearing an e-collar. And I said in the video, you don't fix this with an e-collar. Now, I didn't say this with any expectation that, some of the retards on the internet were actually going to listen to me. I said this as a warning so that you can't blame me when you use the e-collar to try to light up the dog that is resource guarding and you get eaten. It's not my fault. I told you that's not how you fix it. Right? At this point now, it's in your hands. You want to light up dogs that are resource guarding on the bull? Good luck. Go do it. See where it gets you. Right? I am so tired. I use e-collars all the time in training. E-collars are fantastic training devices. I've said it before, I'll say it again. They're the most modern form of dog training. If you know what you're doing with them, if you understand the possibilities with the e-collar, you understand the limitations of the e-collar. And you understand when, where, how, why, what. Right? If you think you're going to light up a dog that is aggressive or reactive, okay, in a meaningful way. I'm not talking about like a dog that's like half-assing it. I'm talking about like one that's really all about it. And you think you're going to light him up when he does that, and he's going to stop, and he's going to be a good boy because you put the e-collar on him. Good luck. Good luck. Let me know how it goes. Is aggression more genetic? All behavioral predispositions from sociability to aggression are genetic. How do I train aggressive dogs for a vet visit? The same way I train them for anything that they don't want to do, okay? I operate from the assumptions like, okay, you don't want to do this. You have to tolerate this. The vet's going to pull on your tail. He's going to grab your feet. He's going to do this, that, and everything else. So let's follow first management. How can I prevent this, okay? How can I keep the vet safe? Okay, I put the muzzle. I hold him in a certain way. I put my arm around his neck maybe so he can only see me. And then I correct him if he goes out of control and tries to get after the vet. So I disincentivize the dog. I inhibit the dog from being aggressive. Then, okay, what's he motivated by? He's motivated by food. He's motivated by his ball. Okay, how can first I have to inhibit his natural predisposition to try to eat the vet when the vet touches his ass or his paw or whatever. And then I have to reinforce him making good choices. Right? A lot of people just try to reinforce. And if the dog's not particularly motivated to actually be bad, no problem, it works, okay? But when the dog's very intrinsically motivated to eat the vet when the vet touches his or her paw, the liver treats aren't going to stop him. So first what you must do is you must inhibit the act of trying to eat the vet. And then there's going to be a moment in the training when the vet, or I assume you're going to use a helper for this if you're smart. Most vets aren't going to go along with you for the process, right? When you see that the dog feels the stimulation, right? Like, oh, he's touching my paw, and he's just holding himself back. And you see that moment where he applies impulse control and he controls himself from going after the vet. In that moment, that's when you reinforce him positive. Good choice, man. Good job. You see? But first you must inhibit. Otherwise, it's never reliably gone. Kevin, can you make a Patreon video of how to wean off or remove the ball from obedience? My GSD will look like an IGP dog for his ball, but if no ball, he barely knows what foos means. No, he knows what foos means. Remember, Kevin, my Patreon is an addition to my courses. It is not a step-by-step course portal. You want step-by-step courses on how to train a dog to heal or train a dog to do focus healing for IGP? That is a course. Now, if you can pick it up by watching all my Patreon videos, great. My Patreon videos are different candid moments in training where I'm teaching stuff, but I'm not doing my courses over again in the Patreon. If you have my courses or you read my book, the Patreon is a wonderful addition. Your dog doesn't forget what heel is. He knows what a heel is, unless you're luring him with the ball constantly, in which case he just follows his ball. And of course, when you get rid of it, then he doesn't know what a heel is because he never really learned what a heel is. But in many cases, you have the problem that many people have. You've incentivized the behavior, but you haven't disincentivized the act of not doing it. And you need to disincentivize the act of not doing it. So he understands, yeah, there's incentives if you do it, but there's also consequences if you don't. What type of Asian arowana is yours? I wish we could get those in the U.S. Only got silvers. He's an Asian arowana, a gold crossback. He's a gold crossback. I know that's the problem with the U.S. I don't know why they banned them. If I was in the U.S., I'd probably own a Giardini. Should I buy this 2-year-old Iron Bull Presa Canario? He's aggressive, and if I do, how can I build a bond with him so he won't kill me? No, don't buy him. If you're asking me these questions, don't buy him, man. I live in the country with lots of land and have a great Pyrenees who is well trained but has major anxiety and separation anxiety. Any tips? Yeah, I have a whole separation anxiety video on YouTube. I suggest you watch it. Can you talk about the dog once you had named Yeah, I already talked about Danger. So with Danger, again, right? We had to be very firm. Like he put one of my guys, he actually put my buddy Carson in hospital, right? Like at the time Carson was working for me, he was handling the dog. The dog turned around and came for him just because he tried to walk the dog away from a sleeve on the ground. And the dog attacked him, right? I was there wearing, I had a sleeve. I ran yelling, yeah. Carson's like trying to get away from the dog. He's running around a support pillar. The dog's going after him. I ran up and I stuffed the sleeve in the dog's mouth and we grabbed the leash. And that's how we finally got it stopped. I think Carson ended up with like 40 stitches or something like this, and his arm was pretty messed up for a little bit. You know, and then what did we do? Well, Danger already was obedience trained. He knew what he was supposed to do, and he was choosing not to do it because that's the type of dog that he was. And he finally got to express that to the highest level. So what did we do? We set Danger up for the exact same thing. You know, people say, oh, you're setting the dog up to fail. Yeah, I am setting him up to fail so he stops failing, right? So not such a weird idea, but some people seem to struggle a lot with it. We set Danger up for that, and inevitably he made the same decision. He said, at this point, I am now going to come and try to eat the handler. And we showed him why that was a terrible idea. And that was the only thing that kept him in check, right? That was the only thing that kept him in check. And then he was able to do the exercise. But it was always still inside of him. He just didn't express it. We put a threshold towards him expressing that. We inserted inhibition towards him coming for the handler. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fun. We did learn a lot, though, with that dog. That dog was a good teacher. What do you do after getting bit? Man, you gotta go to the hospital, because here's the thing. Like if it's a bad bite, a dog bite, like if it gets infected, you can lose the limb. And I don't know about you, but I'm not about losing limbs, you know, if I can avoid it. And the last thing you want to do is lose an arm because you just tried to go it alone, you know. Go to the hospital, man. Like you need antibiotics in many cases. I'll tell you this, after I got bit, I made the mistake of pouring alcohol, not like drinking alcohol, but like, you know, the alcohol you buy at the pharmacy for like wounds. I think you call it rubbing alcohol. I poured it in the wound. Oh man, it wasn't just a mistake because it hurt. It turns out like I poured it in the wound, I bandaged it up, and then I had to teach the rest of the group class. But once I was done, I went to the hospital and I told the doctor, I poured rubbing alcohol in it. And he said, don't ever do that again because you're killing the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. He said, better if you just wash it with soap and water as much as you can, and then, just bandage it up. But they even don't like to put too many stitches in dog bites. They want the wound to weep. They want it to drain, right? They want the bad shit to come out because dogs can have really dirty mouths, right? Especially, let's just say he was like licking his ass 5 minutes before he mauls you. That's a bad deal, buddy. You know, you have dog shit in your wounds. That can literally go to your heart and kill you. It's no joke. Do you believe dogs learn bad habits from another untrained dog by letting them spend time together? For sure they do. For sure they do. Canine German Shepherd. Hi, Has. Sorry, off the subject, but have you gotten an update on Yaxie? I love him. Yeah, Yaxie's doing well. Yaxie's doing very well. I know he's living the good life with his family. Carol Curto. Chase and Mama Bear in the house. Oh, hey, Carol. I hope you and Hades are doing well. 11 people killed since 2021 in the UK. Are you talking about by bullies? Well, listen, like when you talk about big, strong dogs like that, if the behavior is not under control, people call them whatever they want to call them. Maybe it's a bully, maybe it's not, but for sure they can kill somebody. How is the temp here? The temp is minus 11 right now, I think. Alex, hello, just found your channel as an IGP helper. I like seeing the coverage of the sport. Awesome. Did Danger have a BRN? No, he did not. Well, he did, but I know he was never registered. Do I socialize dogs with other non-trained dogs when they are in the process of being trained? No, I do not. I don't believe that that's productive, okay? The reason I don't believe I only will do it, so I'll give you an example. So, like, I have a reactive case I'm working right now. He's a, like, intense reactive dog, but he's not like a committed dog. Like, he doesn't plan to kill any other dogs, okay? Here's the thing. With him, I'm not socializing him. Like, I've already neutralized him to other dogs, and we've corrected him for going after other dogs, and he knows he must not. But now I have to prepare him for off-leash dogs running up to him. I want to create a bigger barrier to him expressing that reactive behavior, right? It's based in insecurity, but it's still there and it's intense. So for sure, we will set him up by having like some strange dogs run up to him that we know aren't going to try to mess him up, and holding him accountable if he tries to go after them proactively. Right? But no, I don't believe in that. I don't think it's particularly productive that the dog worry one way or the other. Either he's excited to meet the dogs or he's scared to meet the dogs, but actually allowing the meetings to happen only further that emotion that's not productive to the dog being successful. Hillary says, after a dog bite, people come to visit me at work. No one comes to visit me at work because they're having a good day. Yeah, Hillary, you're an emerge doc, aren't you? I forgot about that. I'm sure you see your fair share of dog bites. Yeah, they're not pleasant. I don't know what's more unpleasant. The act of getting them stitched up or waiting for hours in the hospital for your turn. Because generally dog bites, you're not at the head of the line when it comes to triage. How's Bang and Chico's tracking going? Well, since it's -10 and we got snow on the ground, for me, I've taken a break from tracking. When it gets down to around 0 degrees, I'll start tracking again. Could you talk about the current state of force-free versus balanced training? Well, I mean, to be honest, there's more and more people training like with tools now. I mean, you can debate whether it's a good thing or a bad thing because a lot of people do it poorly, as is normal for the human race, like whenever people do things, a lot of people aren't particularly good at the thing, and then you have a lot of people that are like kind of average, and then you have some people that are exceptional, and that's the way of the world, right? But there are certainly a lot more people training with tools than not, and the force-free community, just by nature, like they're kind of like those vegans that are like super like, like they're vegans that are like more than vegans. They're like activists, right? A lot of them are like this. So it's not enough that they are just like, You know, vegans, they also want to stop you from eating meat. The force-free people are the same, right? It's not enough that they just train with the cookies all the time. They want you only to be able to train with cookies, and if you don't, you're a horrible, abusive person. And because more and more people are going to the balanced way of training, because with the advent of the internet and videos, people are seeing levels of obedience and behavior modification that they've never been able to see before, and they're just seeing it so much. And you know, balanced trainers are really doing well from a training perspective. They're resorting more and more towards legislation, right? And really just trying to legislate balanced traders out of business because they can't do it by fairly competing in the marketplace. Is chasing cars prey drive? It can be. A lot of the time it's just the arousal of the car, like whoosh, going by super fast, just amps up the dog, you know? And young German Shepherds, it's 15 weeks old, you know? Like, they are easily aroused by everything. They're excited by everything. They're made insecure easily as well. And it's very common for puppies on this age to show, you know, reactive behavior. And people often, get really worried. Just redirect the puppy. Don't allow him to engage in it too much and keep it moving, you know, at this age. Great work you do with dogs. I have a 7.5-year-old male, not yet good with other dogs, with muzzle on. Should I keep distance meeting other dogs until... No, you should never allow your dog to meet other dogs. It's very not productive. I suggest you read my book or you take one of my courses. Reading, there is no good time to introduce your dog to strange dogs. It's a very non-productive behavior and it'll never make anything better. My bite was, there isn't actually anything to stitch together. I went home and found a piece of my chin on the floor. Yeah, sometimes they take a part of you that the doctor isn't able to put back on. What are thoughts on addressing underlying problems? What is the... underlying problems, again, underlying problems presupposes that genetics aren't part of the problem, because any person in their right mind understands that genetic behavior is genetics is not something that you can, cookie train away, right? Anybody who's in their right mind using logical thinking, it's it's kind of like this idea, in human behavior, where it's you have this childhood trauma, which is why you do this, and this. And in fact, with people, it turns out, if you're, let's say, psychology is very much not a settled science by any stretch of the imagination, but it turns out that a lot of our behavior is genetic as well, and our behavioral predispositions are genetic as well. And then, of course, there are certain things that can cause certain behaviors to express themselves or manifest themselves, whether it's our upbringing, so on and so forth. But there's always this idea, you have this inner child, and if you were to address your inner child's trauma, therefore all your problems will go away. And it's not particularly realistic in my experience for humans, and it's definitely not realistic for dogs. What you have to understand is, okay, have you guys ever heard of this? If you do this for 1 minute, science has proven you will feel better. Right? The act of raising your arms is something that we as humans, and if you watch small children when they're really happy and let's say they win something or they're successful, yay, they do this, right? So the science has proven if you do this, you will feel better after 1 minute. Okay? People actually go and do this every day for a minute. You know what I mean? Why is that? Why is that? Because physically doing this thing, okay, this is so genetic inside of us, right? This is a genetic predisposition to raise our arms when we feel good, okay? Our ancestors for many generations did the same thing. They raised their arms when they feel good. So much so that now, even if you don't feel good and you raise your arms for a minute, apparently it makes you feel better. Science, right? Okay? Don't take my word for it. Look it up. It's the same with dogs, but even more so. If you can get the dog to start doing the thing that, let's say, okay, I can get the dog to be neutral around other dogs, right? My dog's reactive. The reactivity is a function of the dog's insecurity, fear, and also a little bit of arousal, okay? And I basically say to the dog, I inhibit all the reactivity, and I say, you must not be reactive anymore. You must control yourself. You must not engage in any physical embodiments of arousal reactivity, right? In many cases, what you'll see is the dog actually becomes less nervous and scared because I don't allow him to practice the physical manifestations of the nervousness and fear around the other dogs within reason, right? Like, I won't let him run away either, but I won't like say like, you have to be happy and lift his tail up or anything like that. But at the same time, I won't let him be reactive, right? You have to be around the other dogs, right? You have to be, and I do it over and over and over again. And the dog learns, I just have to be around the other dogs. I'm not allowed to engage in manifestations of that emotion. And the less you allow them to engage in the physical manifestations of the emotion, the less they feel that way. It's the same for humans, right? It's the same for humans. Let's say like you're scared to jump off like a high dive, okay? Like it's a high diving board, like 20 feet up. It's scary. So hard. You stand on the edge, you look down, it's scary. Scary as, like so scary. And finally you like force yourself, or maybe someone even pushes you, helps you, right? And you jump off. And then you go up. The next time is not so hard. And the next time is not so hard. It's not that you stop maybe being scared of jumping, but you're able to productively deal with the fear. And you're able to, like, the fear isn't at such a high level that you lose the ability to function. It's the same with dogs, right? In whatever, you can change it to whatever you want. Have I trained any golden doodles? Are you kidding me? I train lots of golden. I train every breed. There's like very few breeds that I have not trained here. We love training golden doodles. You got golden doodle? Bring it to us. Can you talk on slow maturing dogs? My male still. So yeah, this force-free idea that like you'll change the emotion, it's all part of like the pipe dream that they're selling you, you know? Because they can't correct the dog, right? It goes against their religion. So they have to sell you this idea that there's like this inner puppy inside of the dog, and they're gonna, you know, do this with the thresholds, and they'll use a lot of big words and phrases to try and confuse you, baffle you with bullshit, and oh, we'll do this and we'll do that, and science and this and studies and blah 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 blah, all horseshit, all nonsense. All, we are not going to correct your dog. We're going to give your dog hot dogs under various different levels of, you know, whatever. And this is why you'll see like with them, like they'll show like a dog that they fix, right? Dog comes in, same room, like he's reactive, right? With a dog, they'll have the helper dog or the decoy dog in the room. And then they'll show like 5 weeks later, the same situation in the room with the decoy dog, right? And the dog's like eating cookies now from the handler. Did they train the dog? No, of course not. They just habituated the dog to that room with that dog. When you see with me, when I train reactive dogs, I don't show you like the same exact circumstances with the same dog unless I've corrected the behavior on that same day, in that same moment. I show you what? I'll put that reactive dog in many situations. I'll make that reactive dog not be reactive around dogs chasing balls around him. I'll make that reactive dog not be reactive with my dog barking in his face. I'll make that reactive dog not reactive outside, in the room, here, there. I'll generalize, and I'll put I'll generalize the inhibition to a lot of different things to really try and completely remove the behavior as much as the behavior can be removed. And then, of course, repetition, 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 right? And that's real training. That's real training. No, golden doodles are not hard to train. We love training dogs. Will any Staatsmacht dogs have natural aggression? Sure. Sure they will. Do I have an open house? Can I bring my Mal? No, I don't have an open house. If you're training with us, you can come. Do my online courses allow for some kind of feedback or Q&A from the students? We have a group, right? So all the people in our online classes, all right? All the people in our online classes have access to our Facebook group. And I'm in the group, and then tons of other alumni are in the group, and any questions you have will be answered in there. You can post videos of your dog in there, questions, so on and so forth. So yes, there is Q&A. one other thing too, guys. So I talk about my trainer's course as well. Okay, I have a trainer's course. Now, I show you my dog training systems in my online training. What does my trainers? A lot of people ask me like, what's the difference? Like, why is your training course like? What extra do you get in your training course? My training course actually teaches you how to run a dog training business, right? A lot of dog trainers out there, like obviously, if you take my dog training system, whether it's reactive training, puppy training, elite off-leash training, from a pet training standpoint, you're going to be in the top 99th percentile. That's not me bullshitting. That's just straight facts. You know, the results are in. You can see the results. You know, decide for yourself. I don't particularly care. But with the training course, a lot of people say, like, what's the difference in the training course? The training courses, we actually talk about how to manage clients. Of course, it's included. All the dog training is actually included. So, like, all my dog training courses are also included in the training course. So you can learn about resource guarding, puppy training, off-leash training, e-collar training, all that stuff. But in the training course, I actually talk about how to train a dog, how to run a dog training business, how to scale, how to advertise, how to structure your website, how to run your social media, how to client manage, how to manage your curriculum, all that stuff. That's actually the real gold in that course. And then, of course, we certify you. You guys may have been catching our certifications, right? Where I post the video of the certification on our social medias. This isn't like any, I've never seen another training course where people actually have like video unedited of their certifications or any video of their certifications. It's all like, oh, look, we took a test and they got their certificate and they're standing next to the famous trainer or whatever and they take a picture. That's not real, man. Real training, right? Real training, real pet, like real training that you're going to have to like learn how to do with, you know, behavior cases, with, you know, the average person that walks through your door with a golden doodle, you know, not like some sport training system or something. This is like training that's actually going to make you successful as a pet dog trainer, which is, listen, the reality is the vast majority of people, when you're training dogs, 99% of your clients are pets, right? I don't have quite the same odds at this point, but I've been in the business for a long time. 99% of your clients are going to be pets. You better know how to service that market. You better know how to train those dogs. You better know how to fix those behaviors, so on and so forth. So for those of you asking about the training course, if you go to myshieldk9online.com, I'll put the link in the description below. You guys can, the rest of the questions should be answered on that landing page. But anyways, yeah. I'm interested in your trainer's course, but I'm friends with a controversial person, and I'm not sure if that would be an issue. Are you friends with me? Is this some kind of joke? I'm pretty controversial as dog trainers go. No, I mean, you could hit us up and let us know. Unless you're like bosom buddies with like Marilyn Manson or something. Marilyn Manson. What's his name? Who's that guy? Charles Manson? Like some crazy guy. Does my training course include how to train people? Yeah. That's the whole thing, right? That's the whole thing. Is training you how to train clients, right? Like that's a big part of it. Is like, this is how you train clients, right? And we're constantly adding more content to that. Online classes are awesome. Working on one now. Awesome. Happy for you. Do I have classes for puppies? Yes, I do. I have in-person classes, and I also have online classes. Is Glitzy still an active member of my breeding program? Yes. Her last 2 breedings didn't take. I'm going to try one more breeding with her. If it doesn't take, then she's done. Post our group classes. Our group classes are posted. You can go on the website and see them. Okay, guys. Thank you for watching. I tried to give you the unvarnished truth when it comes to this stuff. I'm not interested in, like, selling you guys a dream, you know? Does it work? Hell yeah, it works. It freaking works. But, you know, there's a certain reality that's unignorable when you're training dogs like this. All right, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.